It's the Guitar Dads! Welcome to the Guitar Dad Podcast, a podcast for guitar dads by guitar dads. This week we are talking Ramones and Dave Gohl all on the same... Did I just say those two things together? Yes, we are talking biopics. Biopics, how do you say it? We'll figure it out. We're also getting into some gear reviews and much, much more on this week's Guitar Dad Podcast. Now, here are the guys, Dave and Matt.
Hello, everybody. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave. What's up?
Welcome back to the podcast. Here we are again for another podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening.
We appreciate our listeners and our subscribers on YouTube,
And watching
Instagram,
on YouTube.
Twitter.
Yep.
Should we mention all that stuff now? Is now the time?
Yeah, run through it, Dave.
So, thank you out there, whoever has been looking at our content on YouTube. It's a newer channel, so please go out there and search Guitar Dads on YouTube. Check it out. Hit the like, subscribe. You know how it rolls. Check out Guitar Dads Pod on Twitter, Guitar Dads Pod on Instagram, and yeah. And if you're listening to this, then you obviously found our podcast. So there you go.
So thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's see. So there's a little bit of activity up on the YouTube page. I posted another a demo, which we will talk about. We mentioned it last week, but I got a new Squire Classic Vibe Telly. I put up just a quick sound, just a sample. It's not really a demo. It's like a sound sample. You can see kind of.
But you're not a telly guy. You're not a telly guy, right? You're
definitely not.
Definitely not a telly guy.
Definitely not.
You hate tellies.
We can get into that later.
We're going to confirm this tonight.
We'll get into it later. How much I hate tellies.
All right.
With the Squire Classic Vibe, or the Squire Classic Vibe, as we like to call it. And so, yeah, so go check that out if you haven't seen that. If you want to hear some, kind of mediocre-ish guitar playing, you can go on there and hear it, which sometimes I like. That's part of the reason why I put this up, right? Like, you can listen to these amazing players demo these guitars, but if you hear someone that is just kind of okay demo it, then you get a better sense for what it actually sounds like. So
I agree.
That's the service.
Those are the reviews I listen to. I don't want to hear the shredders. I don't want to hear the guys that are just unbelievable, because I'm not going to get a true sense of what it's going to sound like when I play it.
This is the service we provide to you here in Guitar Dad's podcast: mediocre gear demos.
We strive for mediocrity.
That's right. Exactly, this is what we're doing here. So go check that out.
We sacrifice our own learning and our own skills so we can provide mediocrity to you, the listener.
Exactly. So let's see here. So this week, Dave, what are we doing? We're going to, on the music part of the podcast, there's some news that recently came out about the Ramones, and that the Ramones are going to have a biopic or biopic on Netflix, which is going to be played by the guy that's on Saturday Night Live, which I don't know his name. But
can we discuss the biopic argument?
Yes.
Should we get into this? What's the final word on this? What is the final word?
What on the pronunciation?
Yeah, what do you call it?
I mean, I say biopic, but some people say biopic.
See, I say biopic. I don't know.
Maybe it's biopic. I have no idea.
That sounds like something that my ophthalmologist would say, but I don't know. I mean,
this is like tremolo or tremolo.
See, not that many people say tremolo, though.
This is like, how do you say Diodario? Is it Diodario or Diodario?
Yeah, that's another one.
Is
it Fender biopic? Or is it Fender?
Yeah, that's right. Or is it Gibson or is it Chibson? I mean, either one.
Chibson.
I mean, which one is it? So anyway, so let's talk about the Ramones, Dave. So supposedly there's this biopic. I'll just say biopic since that's what we're agreeing on. There's a biopic of the Ramones coming out, played by this guy with Saturday Night Live from Saturday Night Live. And I thought it was, that'd be interesting to see the Ramones. I know you're a big fan of the Ramones, right, Dave? Like you wear the T-shirt.
Oh yeah, I got the T-shirt on. Oh wait, no, that's not the T-shirt.
But the Ramones is one of these bands where like the girls, like the teenage girls, wear the T-shirt because it became cool at some point, even though they like never heard of the band or couldn't name one of the band's songs. They're absolutely one of those bands where people wear their shirt and don't know their music.
Oh, they're totally one of those bands. And I do have to say, as much as I don't like the Ramones, they are an iconic band, and they did really shape the music industry as we see. I can't even believe what I'm saying, so I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, so the Ramones, like you gotta, like I'm not really a fan of the whole punk rock thing. Like I'd never get into them. Like the who are the other big punk? I couldn't even name to you the big punk rock bands. Sex
Like
Pistols,
Clash, Pistols.
Sex Pistols. Yeah, so there's like some really big ones in the punk.
Well,
rock.
do you like the cult? What about the Cult? See, I don't mind
the cult punk. No, the cult. Yeah,
the cult's not really punk rock. But
I wouldn't call them punk rock.
They're
but you're
really
right.
Punk rock,
they
but they're
sometimes are mentioned in the same.
They're sometimes mentioned in that same
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, the cult, but I actually like the cult. The cult are the ones where the guy plays the White Falcon, right? The Gretsch White Falcon. Yeah,
Richard Fortus was in the Cult.
No, but he plays the guitar that the guy from the Cult made incredibly popular. And well, anyway, so yeah, so the Ramones. I mean, whatever. If you like them, maybe it's a fun thing to watch on Netflix.
But what's the biopic about?
It's a biopic. It's about the life of the Ramones. Johnny Ramone.
What do you know?
Dee
Do we know what they're
Ramone.
focusing on?
No, it's just a biopic about the Ramones, which brought me.
It's just like a bunch of scenes of overdosing, or what is it? I mean,
I mean, those guys actually lived pretty long.
They did.
But I thought it was a good thing to remind us, maybe we have a conversation about biopics and things that we like in the music world. Obviously, there was a huge one a few years ago with Bohemian Rhapsody. Which, did you see that, Dave?
See, yeah, we were talking about this before we came on. That I have not seen any biopics.
Bohemian.
I haven't seen any of them.
So the two,
or
okay,
a lot of them.
You haven't seen them. So the two ones that come to mind that were great was one of them was Bohemian Rhapsody, which was only a couple of years ago. Obviously, it was an awesome. You should watch it, Dave. It's an awesome movie. It's mainly about Freddie Mercury. It's not so much like following Queen, but of course it's Freddie Mercury, so of course it follows Queen.
Was that the one with Mike Myers and Dana Carvey?
No. That's something different.
Different movie, right?
That's a different thing. That's a different thing altogether. But so you should watch it, Dave. I'm surprised you haven't seen Bohemian Rhapsody. Come on,
I have not. No.
And the other, there's been a few of them. I didn't see the Elton John one that came out last year as well. Well, maybe in 2019 it came out. It kind of fell flat. It was supposed to be like as big as the Bohemian Rhapsody one, which everybody raved about. And I did watch it. It is actually good, like I said. But the Elton John one came out and it kind of flopped a little bit. Although I would still watch it. I do
remember hearing that, yeah. I haven't seen either one.
Yeah, the other one that comes to mind that I thought was incredible, even though you guys are going to kill me, but I'm not a huge fan of the artist, is Walk the Line, Johnny Cash. The Johnny Cash one with Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon. That awesome.
That is the last biopic that I've seen. I have seen Walk the Line. I really enjoyed that movie, and yes, I'm not a big Johnny Cash fan.
Yeah, I know. People are going to go insane with this, but... And especially, can I just also say this? His version of Nine Inch Nails' Hurt that everybody raves about was terrible.
I agree. I agree.
People are just flipping off the podcast right now as we say this stuff.
Yeah, but this isn't...
I mean, come on.
I know.
Look,
it is what it is.
It's the same with the Ramones, right? You cannot deny that these people are incredibly influential people. And I actually think, he had a few cool songs, Johnny Cash, and he had a style to him. You got to respect it. But at the same time, like, not my cup of tea with the music, I'm sorry to say. Sorry to say, guys. But either way, the biopic was really great. There was another one that was really good. What was the one that was a famous musical? That was really good too. Jersey Boys. About
Bon Jovi.
No, not about that. Would be. I'm sure that one's coming out too. Actually. But that was actually a really good movie. The Jersey Boys movie about the Frankie Valli. Those
Yes.
guys. What's that band?
Uh,
The Four Seasons.
yes.
Frankie Valli and the Four
I knew it was
Seasons. Is
some
that
hotel.
right? Yeah, it's about a hotel. That's what it's about.
That's
Anyway,
what it's exactly
that was
what it's
actually a cool movie as well. But anyway, but Dave, what about like music? I thought we could also talk about what about cool like like just movies about music in general, whether it's like a documentary or whether it's just a music movie.
Well, I mean, I think one of the most I just mentioned it earlier. One of the most iconic music movies ever is Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2.
That's a really good point. It is pretty music focused, and there's some cool stuff going on there music wise. For me, like probably my favorite one about music. For me, it's a toss up between School of Rock and Rockstar
Classic.
and Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg.
What is that? What's that line with oh, I'm so hungover. Does anybody know what that means? Yes, it means you're drunk. No, it means I was drunk last night.
That's right. Jack Black, classic Jack Black movie. But that's a great music movie. But do you remember Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg?
I think I did see Rock. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time. Yeah, Rockstar. Yes.
And you know who's in it at the end of the movie? This is a little known fact.
You?
No. No, but you're in some movies. We should talk about that sometime.
Let's not talk about those.
Yeah. I'm not in movies like you are, Dave. Dave was an extra in some very popular movies. You guys, just to give you guys a little insight into that. But anyway, so no, at the end of Rockstar, he's all burnt out. You know, he's had enough. He's kind of done the rock star life and lost his, like, kind of destroyed his life almost to some point, lost his love of the music, you know, lost his longtime girlfriend. And there's a guy in the audience who is singing along with him, and he's a really good singer. And then Mark Wahlberg Mark Wahlberg just kind of says, okay, why don't you come up and take over the show? And then he just walks off into the sunset at that point. Who's the guy? Do you know, Dave?
I can't remember. No,
it's Miles Kennedy.
Yes, it is. Yes, you're right. Yes, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's Miles Kennedy. So Miles is in it. It's pretty cool. So anyway, Rockstar, amazing movie for a music themed type of a movie. But I didn't even really think of Wayne's World, Dave. That's a good shout. So that's a great one as well in terms of music themed things.
Well, you know, it's funny. We're talking about this, right? And I'm kind of just thinking about there's a lot of, and you mentioned a couple of these that they're about bands that really are they're very polarizing in the sense that people either love them or hate them, right? They're not like your average, like, yeah, I like their music. Yeah, I'm not really a huge fan, but I really enjoy their music. People either like the Ramones, you either love them or you hate them. Yeah. Queen's kind of the same way. I mean,
really,
I think Queen, but
really, I think Queen are like universally loved.
You think so?
Yeah, man. Don't you think so? No, like
I don't know.
Like we are the champions. We will rock you.
Well, I think people know those songs, but in terms of like being a fan, you know, like really
maybe,
appreciating the music, I'm not quite sure that there's a, you know, that I think there's a number of people that know. Now I don't know this for a fact. I'm just saying I think there's a number of people that definitely know those songs, probably like those songs, but they're really not like huge Queen fans, right?
Yeah, maybe you're right.
And I think I'm sure there's a lot of bands like that. You know, maybe that's another topic for another time. We can get into this on another podcast, but
yeah, no, there probably is a lot of bands like that. But yeah, so
that's and again, people are definitely gonna kill me for saying this, but I think, and I think you agree. We feel the same way about Bruce Springsteen, right? And we are not giant Boss fans, right? Let's be honest. We're not giant.
We're not giant Boss fans. No, we're not giant fans. We like a lot of. I probably like a few more of his songs than you do, but you're right. Like we're not.
We're probably about equal.
We're very casual fans of the Boss.
We're very casual fans. Yeah.
We totally.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about. There's artists that are like that are kind of you either love them, not love them or hate them, but you kind of. You know the music, but you're not like a real massive fan, you know? But there are certain people that, of those groups or of those bands, there are certain people that are absolutely obsessed.
Yep.
Right? I mean,
Yeah. What about like, what about another thing with the movies? What about like concert films?
Concert films. That's a good topic.
Do you have any that you know? I mean, the only one I really know and love is Song Remains the Same.
Oh well, I mean that's
Right.
iconic.
That's like such an iconic thing. Are there other? I mean, there's like Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Pink Floyd, The Wall. Yeah.
There's which isn't really a concert, but it's like a concept. They play the album, right? So it's kind of
yeah,
like
it's kind of it's kind of like it. Yeah.
yeah, it's weird. It's definitely really out there and weird. But I don't know. Are there other like really famous concert movies
I don't know.
out there?
You know what? That's something we should explore as well. Yeah.
Hey, if anybody knows this, shout it out and say, look, here's some great concert films that I love. I'm sure there's like some more popular bands that, well, I think you can watch the Band-Aid thing. Oh, sorry, is it Farm Aid, Band-Aid? What was the thing that the famous thing where I guess no, wasn't it Band-Aid the famous thing at the end of Bohemian Rhapsody?
Oh, that's Band-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah, you can like watch that whole thing, the famous Queen performance. You can watch that whole thing. So I guess that would be up there with kind of a cool concert film as well. So there's all kinds of cool ones out there, but those are the only two that I can think of as kind of iconic ones you should absolutely watch if you haven't watched them. But Song Remains the Same is just awesome, right? It's just so cool.
Yeah, that's probably the most iconic one. If you're gonna talk about like, that kind of that genre of film.
Totally. There's totally a bunch of stuff out there. So the other thing happening, if we move on from this, but still staying on the movies, the other thing that's come out this week is Dave Grohl, our buddy Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters, has released a trailer for a new a documentary film called What Drives Us. And this is really focused on, bands kind of touring and hitting the road. It looks pretty cool. You should watch the trailer, Dave. If you stole the
title from one of our more recent podcasts when we talked about favorite drive pedals.
That's right. You said What Drives Us. It's a good point. But it looks actually cool. I watched the trailer on it today. It's got all kinds of big people in it.
Yeah, the trailer, it does look pretty cool.
Slash, Flea from the Chili's, Steven Tyler, Lars Ulrich, Ringo Starr. Like there's some huge names in this, and they kind of talk. It seems like they're going to talk about like life on the road and why life on the road is so important as a musician, and that, in terms of what drives us. I would assume it's getting at, because ultimately playing in front of people and playing gigs is what drives all the musicians, which I got to admit, as someone that just plays local shows, it is pretty much the dragon we all chase, that kind of high we all chase. We're kind of drug addicts in that way. All people that have gigged, they're just like, even if it's like on the smallest scale, it's just kind of like a drug and you can't get enough of it. So
do you know when this movie was actually made? Was it made during the pandemic?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Yeah. I wonder what kind of drove that kind of that thought process, and and maybe the loss of being on the road.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point.
If it's talked about.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Dave. I wonder if they had. I mean, usually these things take a couple of years to hash out, so I wonder. Maybe it's just a coincidence that they started thinking about it, and then gigging all went away, and it made it even more of a.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, no, you're right. I think these things probably take about a year and a half, 2 years to really get out there. But in today's day and age, things are being produced so quickly and put out there in different forms. But when you think about it, I mean, shows kind of stopped almost a year and a half ago.
No, you're right. You're right.
I mean, we're kind of getting there, right? So not that long ago.
No, I think
that it wasn't. It was the shows were shut down for a while.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think maybe Dave and the Foos, because they didn't have anything else to do, were like, "We're doing this movie. It's happening,"
Or maybe it was on the works.
It's a documentary. It's not like it's like a feature film, right? Like it's a documentary that it looks pretty cool. Did you ever watch his documentary about like the recording console? I forget what that was called. Did you ever check that out? It was kind of interesting.
Oh, you're talking about you're not talking about the
It was a Dave Gohl thing.
I don't know if it was a film, or I don't know if it was a documentary about their album Sonic Highways. That he filmed a lot of interviews as he went about making.
Oh yeah, I think that was another one that they did.
So that was a separate one, right? Yeah,
that was a separate one. That was, I don't think I saw that. Maybe I should go and check that out. But
that
that's
was
cool
really
too.
Cool. That was very cool.
No, there was a movie that he did, a documentary basically all about like the history around this really famous recording console. I forget what the studio was, like a famous studio with a really famous console, and like all the great artists that had recorded there, and their stuff went through there, went through the console and recorded with the console, and he like interviewed all these people. It was a cool movie. I checked it out.
I didn't see
But
it.
I should check out that Sonic Highways thing. But anyway, so who knew? Like Dave Grohl, he's also like a film guy. He's a documentary filmmaker as well. Who knew?
He's a filmmaker, and if you remember the 60 Minutes piece that he was on a number of years ago, he was talking about showing up to like PTO meetings in a minivan, you know? So it's like he's got all these things going on.
He's doing all kinds of stuff.
Doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. He's something else, that Dave Grohl. But yeah, so this is cool. I'm actually looking forward to checking this out. So, you know, if you haven't seen the trailer, go check it out. It looks cool. You know, I mentioned those other documentaries. So there's some other cool documentaries out there as well. One of the ones, have you seen any cool like music documentaries lately, Dave? Or do you have any that stand out to you? Or is that is that more of an obscure thing to you?
That's kind of, well, no, it's not more of an obscure thing. It's just not, up until recently, it probably hasn't really been my thing to watch. I mean,
yeah.
Or you know what, I don't always, those things don't always catch my eye sometimes. I'm not always paying attention. But then, you know, if somebody like you tells me, oh, hey, this is cool, I'll probably go, I'll check it out.
That's the reason for this podcast.
For you to make me aware of what's out there.
Well, and our listeners as well, right? If you have another one that I'll call out, I think it's on Netflix. There was a documentary called The Story of Anvil. And Anvil was this band, and you know, this was a pretty popular thing on Netflix, so a lot of you out there might have actually seen this. But if you haven't, it's worth checking out. It's a story about this band that like never quite got there. They were like they're like the quintessential, like they were almost famous. Remember the movie? Oh, by the way,
Almost Famous?
That's another one. That's an incredible music movie. That's right up there with me with the two that I mentioned. Is Almost Famous. Brilliant movie. I loved it. Absolutely loved that movie. So I guess it's top 3 for me for my movies. But anyway, this band is like that. Like they're like Almost Famous. They're in the 80s. They were like kind of almost at like a level where I think they had like a major label deal, and they just never broke through. Right, in the 80s, they were like a metal band, right? They're more like a Metallica or like a Megadeth kind of band, and they didn't quite make it. But the guy like hasn't given up hope. Like he still works like a job, and the guys like work jobs and do their thing, and then they like go out and they do these like mini tours and they play. And it's like unbelievable to see like the struggle these guys go through. There's one of the best scenes is they're in like some like really like divey bar where they play this gig in Europe somewhere. I forget where it is in Europe. And they get in a fight with the bar owner because he doesn't want to pay him. He's like, no, that wasn't the deal. And like they don't really speak English, and it's like, and they get into like almost like a fist fight with this guy. It's pretty crazy. But it basically follows this band that, you know, just hasn't given up the hope, didn't quite get there in the 80s. I would argue, you know, they kind of missed their opportunity. Right. But they were just still fighting and not giving up, which I thought was incredibly interesting. So if you haven't checked that out, go check it out. Story of Anvil. And the band's name is Anvil, which is pretty funny, I think. So
that's another, you know, it's an interesting question you kind of bring up in terms of band. So I'm sure there's so many more bands that are out there than who actually exist successfully, because the ones that exist are the ones that have that kind of drive, right? But what happens to these bands? You know, I'm sure there's a number of those types that just have that drive that just can't catch the break, right? Yeah, and what does it take to get the break?
It's a really good topic. We should probably tackle it another time.
Yeah,
but
how much good music could really be out there that, and you know, in today's day and age, you really have access to a lot of it in so many different in a lot of different mediums. But
it's a really good point, because I think there's two different things. It's one thing for there's bands out there that are like young bands, right, that are just getting going, they're fighting hard, you know, they're really hungry. You know, then there's those bands that have just been at it for, you know, years and years and years and years. You know, at this point you could be at it for, you know, 20 plus the 30 plus years. and you
Yeah,
never
but at
quite
least
got.
nowadays,
Yeah.
nowadays you can get your music out there in so many different ways. Whether it's a Spotify or an iTunes or a YouTube or what a Facebook, you name it.
Yeah, it's true, right? But everybody can do that. So
Everybody can do
it's
that,
even,
right?
there's two things, right? Like I would argue, like these days, it's easier than ever to get your music out there. That's true, but I think it's harder than ever to stand out, right?
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
think
there's
that's
so
the
much
hard.
more competition.
Yeah, that's the hard part. That's the hard part because anybody can literally do it, right? So it's really an interesting thing. But yeah, I mean, it is. I'm sure there's tons of bands out there that are like this Anvil band I'm talking about that maybe never quite made it when it was like their prime time and are just still fighting the fight. What I find interesting is there's guys that I would follow. Like one of the songwriter that comes to mind is what is his name? Matt and Matt and Howie Day is the biggest one. Howie Day
Yes.
had a big hit back in, when was that? When was his big hit? Collide? I don't know. But we should go.
Must have been in the really early 2000s, right? You're
Yeah,
talking
you guys.
probably
Yeah,
2003, 4.
Yeah, I think it was later than that. I think it was
it
like
later, 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Anyway,
Yeah.
this is a guy that had a big hit. Then kind
He had a massive, like, small. I guess that's kind of an oxymoron, but he had a very big, like, small following. I mean,
he did. He built up a really great following. He was playing good sized gigs. He had this huge radio hit, and then he kind of faded away. But guess what? He's still doing his thing. And I got an email from his list the other day. He's doing like Zoom concerts that he's charging people for.
Wow.
Like, he's fighting the fight still, which is amazing.
That's pretty amazing.
So these guys are out there and they're doing their thing. And it's interesting, right? And what's cool is because they did have like some kind of critical mass of people that they were able to sustain themselves. If they've been able to keep, like, people like me. I was a fan of his. I would see him even before he had his radio hits or the hit. And then, I kind of still listen to his music after that. And, and I would go see him again if he was around touring. I'd go check out and see what he was doing.
Yeah, I would check him out.
So anyway, there's plenty, but I think you're right, Dave. There's tons of artists out there that maybe are able to eke out a living. Still,
he was. He was a massive fan of the Looper, right?
Oh yeah, he was one of the first guys out there. He was doing now of course Ed Sheeran has made it wildly popular, but prior to Ed Sheeran. He was one of the guys that really did some kind of cool, innovative stuff with it. The other person that was big with the Looper was KT Tunstall. She was big on it as well.
Yeah, the two of them, yeah.
Yeah, so, right around the same time, honestly. So anyway, we're getting on a tangent, but that's a cool tangent because that's
I remember that
piece.
Howie Day show we went to. Where was it? Before it became the House of Blues in Boston, it was, I forget what it was. And it was Avalon?
Avalon, yeah.
Avalon.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing him, and he was just like pounding the Jack and Cokes. People were buying drinks for him, and he was just doing his thing on the Looper.
He was so good back in the day. I saw him at the Berkeley Performance Center, where he did so well. He was so good.
He's so talented. That's the thing. Like, it doesn't just because you're just because you have the talent and the drive doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to maintain any kind of relevancy, right? I mean, which is kind of sad when you think about it, because there's so many great artists out there.
Yeah, there really are some great people out there, right? So
that you almost have to search for it now.
These days, yeah. So anyway, so those of you listening, if you forgot about Howie Day or never heard of him, check him out. He's a great artist. So still doing his thing.
Speaking of loopers, should we get into gear?
Yeah, let's transition into the gear. Yeah. What are we talking about?
What are we going to talk about? You want to talk about what we're getting into your telly, or should we get into preamps?
Oh yeah, preamps. Yes, I wanted
to power amps, post amps. What do you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about, as a topic, preamps. What are they? What the heck is a guitar preamp? What is it? How do you use it? How is it different than just a regular drive pedal? Right? Like why would I need a preamp if I have drive pedals and I have an amp? Right.
You know what? Truth be told, this is a really good topic for the average guitar dad like me, who kind of understands this stuff but doesn't fully understand the stuff. And somebody like you who does understand.
Well, maybe
this stuff
I do.
Can really
Maybe
explain it to people.
Maybe
like
I do, or maybe I don't. So so I'll give you the lay of the land on this if I can, if it makes any sense. So I think everybody understands. All the guitar dads out there understand that all your amps have a preamp section and then the power section of the amp, right? So you got that right, Dave. So everybody uses a preamp of some. So if you have an amp, you're using a preamp. If you're using a modeling amp, then it's modeling a preamp section. Is what that's basically if you have a modeling amp, a lot of what that is doing is modeling the preamp section. And the preamp section of your amp, as you guys know, it's really what generates a lot of the tone. Not all of the tone, of course, because there's a lot to be said about power tube amps and transformers and stuff like that. But it really does a lot to color the tone of your guitar as it comes in. And it also kind of amplifies that signal and gets it prepared for the power amp. Takes your line level of your guitar and gets it prepared for the power amp section of your amp, right? So then what happens? So everybody knows there's this preamp that's inside as part of your amp. So then you have these pedals. A lot of people might already know this already, but then you have these pedals
did
that
you
could
say part of Yo Amp.
Of Yo Amp.
I think you did.
Did I say that? I'm going fast here, Dave. I'm trying to get through this. Trying to be as clear as I can.
That was very hip.
It's a Yo Amp.
That was really hip.
So anyway, then you could have a pedal that basically bypasses that or even adds to that, right? So there's all kinds of preamp pedals out there that really what they do is they add some level of EQ. It definitely boosts your signal, right? And a lot of these preamps you can even put in front of an amp, right? That has its own preamp, just because if you want to color the tone a little bit more and you want to boost the signal. And the reason, and you might say like, well, why would I want to do that when I can just buy like an EQ pedal? Well, it's a good point. You could just buy an EQ pedal. You could just put a drive pedal in front of your amp, right? Which we all do, which we all know and love. But the preamp pedal is another way to give like different flavors of EQ and a way to kind of boost the signal prior to it coming into the amp.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just like a different way to shape the sound. So if you're going to use like your Sheriff, right? I mean,
yeah, we're going to get into the Sheriff, but yeah,
right. You could, we'll get into the Sheriff.
Yeah.
You could use that, but that's gonna sound a little bit different than a different preamp, right?
That's right. That's right. So there's all kinds of different preamps, right?
Yeah.
So then you have these things. You have these pedal preamps that you can use in front of your amp, like I said, for different EQing to boost the signal, or that have drive associated with them as well. And a lot of these amps, what you can do is bypass the preamp section of your amp completely and go right into the power section. So if your amp has an effects loop, you can go into the effects loop and kind of bypassing your preamp section, right? So I have a pedal that Victory makes called the Sheriff. They have a whole line of tube preamp pedals, which are incredibly cool. And if you watch my demo of the drive pedals, you'll see that I had the preamp going there. And what I do is I run that like an amp. I run the preamp pedal like an amp and put my drives in front of that pedal. And then I run it through the HX Stomp and it has the IRs. So I don't even really have a power section. It goes right into the HX Stomp where I have an IR, and that goes right into, either my computer or into a PA. And it works incredibly well because the preamp is really what shapes the sound. And these Sheriff preamps, these Victory preamps are incredible. And there's different kinds of them too. I have the Sheriff, which is like a Marshall Plexi-ish kind of tone, and it's just awesome. It's totally awesome. But this is what's cool about preamp, right? Like you can use it in that kind of thing that I do, which is you don't even need an amp at all, and you can use a preamp and go into like a direct kind of a solution. And it doesn't need to be an HX Stomp. It could be like the Two Notes Cab M, which is a pedal that you can put IRs into right on your pedal board, and you can take that and go into a PA or go into your console, wherever you want to do. So that's a really cool. So preamp pedals are incredibly cool because it's really clean enough and powerful enough to take your guitar's signal and use it as the main source of sound. Okay. I don't know.
So let me ask you a question then. In terms of like the average guitar dad, where does the idea of a preamp really fall? Like what's why should a guitar dad get, or a guitar mom?
I think one, if you want to, if you want to like this one that I have, which is the Victories, they're actually made to bypass your preamp section of your existing tube amps and go, your tube amp that has an effects loop. If your amp doesn't have an effects loop, it won't work. But my amps that I have behind me, the Orange and the Marshall, they both have effects loops. And what you can do is you use this preamp, this pedal, and you set that pedal up in the 4-cable way. It's what it's called. And you guys can look what that is, but it basically is you're using the effects loop and you're bypassing, or you're also doing it so it can go into the front of the amp. So what you can do is you can set this thing up so when you turn it on, it bypasses the preamp section of your amp and replaces it with this preamp pedal and just uses the power section of your amp. So it basically adds a different channel to your amp, which is incredibly cool. Yeah. Which is an incredibly cool thing. Still using your amp's power section. So it's incredibly cool. So I think like if you want a less expensive way to almost get a new amp, this is one way to do it, right? And then the Sheriff,
I think what does that come in price wise? What is that about?
$400. I think they're like $400. Yeah. And you can get to, so that's, the Sheriff, the whole amps are like a couple of grand, I think, aren't they, Dave? Something like that.
Yeah,
and
you can get
and you can get these preamp things for like $400, which is awesome. But there's other, it's not just the Victory stuff. There's other ones like JHS makes a really cool preamp. I think it's called, is that called the Crayon? I forget what it's called.
I think the Crayon's something different.
Sorry. Well, JHS makes a preamp pedal that I think is designed to go into the front of the amp. So it really just kind of boosts this signal and gives you all kinds of cool EQ options.
What are the different types of preamps then that you can get in pedal form?
So there's that. The other ones that there's other ones out there's the JHS ones. Pretty much all the big pedal companies make some kind of cool preamp. The coolest one that came out recently was the what was it called? Chase Bliss. So Chase Bliss came out with a preamp. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's the one with the faders. So it has all these faders on it, and it is a preamp pedal, and you can use it the way I'm talking about. I think most people use it in front of the amp, but it's technically a preamp pedal where it does like all kinds of different drive sounds. It gets into fuzz territory, so that's really cool. The other thing I want to mention is there's a difference, right? Like a lot of people might say like, well, why can't I just use my drive pedal as a preamp pedal? And that's because drive pedals, they don't have that same type of kind of signal boost in the same way, in a clean enough way to operate in that way, right? Like if you take like a regular, like a TS, an 808, you take a tube screamer, take an 808 tube screamer, you throw it into the effects loop of your amp and bypass the preamp of your amp, it's not going to sound good.
No, it's not going to sound good. And also the tube screamer circuit, the tube screamer type circuit is going to color your sound, right?
All of these are going to color your sound.
All of them are going to color your sound. But I mean, it's not transparent.
But
the tube screamer is not a transparent.
Yeah, but your usual drive pedals are designed to work in concert with an amp, right? They're not just designed to be preamps in and of themselves. So that's the difference here, is that there's a big kind of a difference between what is actually a preamp as a pedal that you can use as a standalone preamp or, regular overdrive pedal, The other thing that's cool about preamps, like I said, if you get a good one, then you can use them as a direct recording or even a direct solution in a live situation. Like I said, you can get, if you have a stomp or some kind of modeling thing, you can turn off the amp sim part of the modeling unit and just use the IR side of the cab sim part. Or you can get like a pedal itself that does you can load the IRs into. I used to have, before I got the stomp, I had the Radar, which is made by, I think it's Moore, makes this thing called the Radar, and it's just an IR pedal. So you could get like a preamp, this Radar, put IRs in it, and go right from the Radar into like the board, and you have like a direct live rig. No amp, no anything, all right on your pedal board. So that's another real good use for preamp pedals. And you can do the same with, if you're not playing live, if you're just going at home and recording, you can do it that way as well, as a direct kind of a of a solution. So that's
Yeah,
preamps, Dave.
that's
any
preamp. Gives you a lot.
I mean,
gives
any
you a lot of
questions?
options. Any questions?
Are you going to get
All
a
right, good
preamp
evening.
pedal, Dave?
What's that?
Are you going to get a preamp? You going to get
I guess I should
preamp
have
pedal?
to now, right? I'm going to have to. You kind of talk me into it, right? I don't know. How do you like the how do you like the your telly going through that sheriff?
Oh, the telly. Yes, I love the telly.
Let's
So if
transition
you-
to this.
So if you listen to
Because
the
we
the
all
demo-
want to know:
I mean,
are
if
you now a telly guy?
I don't know if I'm a telly guy. I'll tell you what,
Okay,
though.
I'm going to ask this one more time.
I do like it.
Are you now a telly guy?
I mean, maybe I am.
He's starting to change.
Maybe I am. Maybe I am. Maybe if you ask it one more time. No, don't do that. But yeah,
If you
no.
now, if you go back to that video, check it out. If you're watching on YouTube right now, click out of this and check out Matt's review of his classic. It's the 50's.
It's the 50s
telly, right? Yeah.
50s telly, yeah.
Yeah. So check it out, and I think based on that review, I mean, you say it directly in there. You are now a telly guy.
I actually don't say that, but
I think you did say it.
It's a cool guitar. It is my first ever telly, and I really like the feel of it. You know what I like about it the most, because I'm used to the Les Pauls? It's like beefy and heavy.
Yeah,
right?
see,
I
knew you would
it's
like
much
that.
kind of beefier than the Strat. And it has that feel to it. Like it doesn't feel like a Les Paul, but it has like that substantial.
It's got that, yeah. It's got the chunk
substantial
to it.
weight to it. But some people say, oh, a lot of guys online are saying, oh, well, I feel like the Squires are much heavier than like I have like a custom shop Fender that's much lighter than my Squire or something. So it's interesting. Maybe it's just whatever wood they're using. I think it's a pine body. I think they just must have some dense pine. I have no idea. I have no idea how it works with the wood, but it's cool. It's beefy and substantial. The neck feels great. It's not really like a baseball neck. It's like a it's definitely a chunkier neck, but it's not a baseball bat kind of neck like the real 50s tellies had, I guess. But it's definitely a chunkier neck, but it feels good. I mean, I like playing it. I actually like the feel of it. I don't feel like the lacquer is too heavy on it. Some people feel like, with Squires, some of the lower end guitars, the lacquer is just too plasticky and too much. I actually did feel that way about my Epiphone that I had after a while. But again, like I said, that was also because I was comparing it to a Les Paul. But
okay, one word, no thinking. What do you think of when you put that neck pickup on? One word, describe it.
I don't know. I mean,
no thinking.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's nice. I like it.
Nice.
It's
okay.
awesome.
We'll take nice.
The neck pickup you're talking about? You're not talking about the bridge?
The bridge. No, did I say bridge? No, did I say neck or bridge? I meant bridge. If I did say neck, I meant bridge.
Yeah, I mean, the bridge on the telly is awesome. You put some drive on and you...
Did I say neck? I meant bridge.
Did you? I don't know what you said. Maybe you did. I'm sorry.
Let's go back to that.
Maybe it's my mind. Maybe I'm losing it. But yeah, so yeah,
You're
really
slowly becoming a telly guy.
Yeah, I like the neck sound. I like the telly sound. I'll tell you what, I like it. I want to say it isn't like my thing because I'm just so used to humbuckers. I'm sorry to say. Like even my Strat that's behind my head right now has a humbucker in the bridge, and it does have the coil, which does sound good. But for the most part, I leave the humbucker on when I want to go to the bridge. So that's the issue. I'm more of a humbucker guy, and it takes me some getting used to with this neck pickup. But it definitely is a different sound that I'm not quite used to, which is fun to play around with. So it's just another nice little tool to have in the arsenal, Dave.
So what constitutes a telly guy, and how close to this are you?
Yeah,
I think we need to know.
I don't think I'm all that close to becoming a telly guy. I mean, I don't know.
Not that close.
You need to have more than one telly to become a telly guy.
Well, that's an easy thing to resolve here. Let's go on Sweetwater. Let's order one.
Although I'll tell you what, though.
I think you need to go American.
So yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, if I keep playing this thing and I still like it, maybe eventually I will get an American telly. Why not? I like this one.
I'm just gonna keep sending you clips of John 5.
All right. You can send me clips. Just send me some John 5 clips. Yeah, let's do that. Brad Paisley.
Brad Paisley. Well, you get then you're gonna get into like the chicken picking.
Yeah, which I'll never be able to do. That is insane playing.
That is some insane stuff that he can do.
Or do you know what about Greg Koch? You know Greg Koch?
His last name is Cock and he chicken picks? What?
Yeah. You don't know
This
Greg?
is interesting.
We haven't talked about Greg Koch. He's awesome.
We have not talked about no.
Yeah, so Greg Koch is an awesome guitar player. He actually has a signature telly. It's made by what is it? I think it's Reverend Guitars. They make his telly. It's a signature one that he makes. It has the Fishman Fluence pickups in it. Come on, you guys don't know Greg. You got to know Greg Koch. He's awesome. He does like all the gear, the guitar things and demos for Wildwood Guitars.
No, I've never heard of the guy.
Really? I thought you knew
should.
about
You know what?
him.
It's embarrassing. Maybe I should.
No, he's kind of a famous guy in the guitar community, but really, he's not like a super well-known like artist or anything like that. He's basically known like as an internet guy because he does all the demos and he's always on. People are always interviewing him, and he's got this awesome telly that he put out a couple years ago. So
well, this is embarrassing. Here I am, a supposed guitar dad, and I haven't. Well, yeah.
Anyway, he's a big telly player himself. So, yeah, there's so many guys, right, that are like, oh, definitely it's a big country thing. I'm not a huge country fan. Like, you know, there's Brad Paisley. Who are the other like big country guitar players?
It's a very universal guitar, though. I mean, you see it in so many different genres.
It is true. It is not just a country thing. That's why I got it. I'm not playing country.
Well, no, I don't know. I mean, you bring up a really good point. It is really a primarily country thing. Remember Prince's country album? Yeah, I think we all remember that, right?
No.
I'm just trying to prove a point. It's not just country.
Remember John Five's country album?
Yeah, you remember John Five's country album?
You remember Steven Tyler's country album? Wait, that was a real thing.
That was a real thing, yeah.
Remember Robert Plant's country album? That was a real thing, too.
That was a real thing, too.
With Alison Krauss. I mean, it wasn't really country, but it was country enough.
Country enough. Yeah.
Country enough that Alison Krauss. Everybody loved that Alison Krauss album. I didn't. I'll just tell you, I didn't get it.
You didn't get it, like you didn't buy it, or you didn't get it, you didn't understand it?
Yeah, both.
Both.
Both. But anyway, the telly is fun. I will continue to play with it and play around with it. The other thing that happened today, Dave, I got an email that Emily Wolf Epiphone signature has come into stock.
It is in stock, so is this
does
something
that mean
on
I
the
should,
horizon?
Does that mean I should do something about it? No.
Yeah, I think you might.
If you don't remember what we're talking about, this is the Emily Wolf Epiphone. It's a Sheridan signature of hers that's black, and it has these diamond sound holes. Check it out. It looks really cool. So I don't know. I'm contemplating. I mean, to me, it's like $800 for an Epiphone. I don't know. I'll think about it.
I suspect in a couple of weeks our YouTube subscribers will be watching it behind your back.
But it looks really cool. What about you, Dave? You have any gear things on the horizon you want to talk about?
I don't have any gear things on the horizon. Maybe I'll have something for next week.
Oh, really?
And speaking of,
what's
next
that?
week, what are we going to talk about next week? Do we know? We don't even know yet.
We don't know yet. But if you have ideas, send them over to us.
Yeah, send them over. If you're, just to remind you, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Hit the like, subscribe, notification bell so you can get all of our new content. I'm sure there's going to be some new review videos and some other things coming on, down the road. I think I'm going to do a quick video of the Guitar Dad version of a guitar setup.
Ooh.
For somebody who's less experienced, somebody like me. It doesn't have to be a luthier, but some really good things that you can do to get your guitar playing and sounding better. So look out for that. And if you're following us on Instagram, check us out at Guitar Dads Pod, Instagram and Twitter. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, you found us. So keep on listening. We really appreciate it. We'd love to see comments on YouTube and on the pod. So keep sending them our way. And if you have any ideas, just send them out, and we'll talk about them on the pod.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's the Guitar Dads podcast for this week, everybody.
See you next week.
Catch you guys on the flip.